economic and cultural issues, women account for 70% of the 1.3 billion people living in poverty. Women are the heads of 40% of the poorest households in cities. Women produce half to 80% of the world's food, while they own less than 10% of the land. The importance of such a show today is to recognize and celebrate the powerful force of women and girls to lead changes and global progress, climate change, highlight the changes that women face due to climate change, and to establish the link between gender inequality and climate change. So today on the show, I'm joined by Mpiwe Mangwiro from Sonke Gender Justice, and we're going to be speaking about the role of women in society, more importantly, the role of women with regard to climate change, being this International Women's Day and, of course, International Women's Month. So important that we highlight the issues of women, not only today, not only tomorrow, but every single day of the year. It's something that I fully support, that we should be empowering women every single day. So let's get into that conversation then with Mpiwe from Sonke Gender Justice. Let's get straight into that then. So Mpiwe, what challenges and barriers do women face in entering certain industries, such as climate adaptation and mitigation?
Yes, Steve. So women continue to face a number of challenges in entering certain industries, such as the ones you've mentioned. And some of the challenges that they really face is the persistent social and cultural norms and the persistent social exclusion that comes with that. For instance, we are talking that women continue to be excluded when we are talking around land rights. Women continue to own less land. I think the World Economic Forum once shared a report that said that across the globe, women owned only 10% of the land, if I'm not mistaken. So you find that it must be 10 or 20% of 20%, actually. The World Economic Forum said that women across the globe only own about 20% of the land. So you find that because of this continued social and economic exclusion that women are facing, then they don't have access to certain industries. They don't have equal access to resources such as water, such as the land, and they also, that has an impact on their ability to be able to participate in impact planning regarding how to manage or how to address or mitigate the effects of climate change. You find that also there is still the consistent patriarchal norms and perceptions that continue to perpetuate women's exclusion from decision-making spaces. Women continue to perpetually to be deemed as not being capable of being able to lead, which also affects their ability to then engage in spaces where decisions about climate change mitigation, climate adaptation are made. You find that women are often on the peripheries. They are often rarely consulted, or they have to even protest for them to be able to get into such spaces. It is always a battle for women to get there. There's also a challenge of lack of access to financial resources. Even when we're talking about climate change financing, you find that women are often excluded from or the requirements that are put in place for people to access climate change financing. You find that they require things like collateral. With such collateral is normally land. And those are things that women still do not have. And so as a result, they are unable to tap into those financial resources. They also struggle with access to training and technology. And also, as I've mentioned, they have limited access to political decision-making spheres where the real decisions about how to tackle climate change and climate and environmental challenges are made. So those are some of the challenges that women continue to face.
But how do we learn or unlearn the bias we've already been learned over the years in society? I mean, society teaches us a lot of to do this and women are like that. How do we unlearn that?
I think it takes a conscious decision, and for us to continue to challenge ourselves and to challenge the status quo. There is need to really transform. How we unlearn that is time we begin to transform some of those harmful norms, some of those harmful practices that have always defined what it is to be a man, what it is to be a woman, which cumulatively contributes to the inequality that we see playing out. And I think that we say, how do we unlearn this? It even starts in the family setup, in the home. We unlearn this through how we begin to do things differently in the way that young children are raised, in the way that boys and girls are socialized, to be able to then challenge those stereotypical norms, challenge those harmful practices that tend to limit or that tend to continue to replicate and replay the same harmful practices, the same inequality that we're seeing in society. And it also takes a willingness. There has to be a willingness within our communities, a willingness from our decision makers to say, we are willing to challenge ourselves to unlearn some of these behaviors. We need to have these constant conversations, engagement. How do we unlearn this? Constant engagement is needed for us to continue to engage on these issues, to speak about them. You see, issues around gender equality are not issues that should be spoken about only when it's International Women's Day or when it's Women's Month or when it's 16 days of activism against violence against women and children. This is supposed to be everyday conversations. These are conversations that we should have every day. We should speak about it every day. Gender inequality affects all of us, in as much as it affects us disproportionately, with women and girls being more on the receiving end. There is need for us to engage and have these conversations as often as we can and address and bring to the fore and highlight those challenges, those harms, those discriminatory practices that come with gender inequality, and begin to challenge ourselves to think differently and to do things differently, to confront those harmful norms and those practices, and begin to think of alternative ways on how we build more positive social norms, more positive ways of doing that promote equality.
So what roles do civil societies play in ensuring gender equality in our communities? And how do we engage young boys and girls in breaking the bias?
I think this is linked to what I've said, that we need to have engagement. We need to have conversations. So civil society's role, one of their roles is awareness raising. There is need for civil society organizations to go into our communities to begin to raise awareness around these issues, because you find that sometimes these are deeply entrenched social and cultural norms and ways of doing things that at times it takes time for a society. Change of attitude, changing attitudes and perceptions is not a day's job. It's a process. It's a very it's a process that sometimes can take time. So this is where civil society comes in, to be able to raise awareness and to constantly engage with different stakeholders around these issues, to be able to say we will engage with men and with boys to begin to address some of these underlying norms that perpetuate the kind of toxic masculinities that we see that continue to entrench gender inequality. How do we engage them on that? Begin to explore and highlight some of the negative effects of those norms, of those forms of masculinity, and present alternatives to say, this is the alternatives, this is how we can transform and do better. And there's also a need for civil society to generate and disseminate evidence. We are in the era where we need evidence-based interventions, evidence-based advocacy when we're talking about this. So we need civil society to continue to generate the evidence that shows that when we adopt more positive social norms, more positive cultural norms, this is how it positively impacts on our societies. This is how it positively impacts on our communities, and be able to disseminate that evidence so that there can be more uptake of this evidence, and it can promote more behavioral and attitudinal changes within our communities and societies. Civil society also need to continue to advocate for change, advocate for gender equality, for laws and policies that promote gender equality, that address discrimination and exclusion, and hold decision makers accountable. There's need to hold decision makers accountable when they put in place laws and policies. For instance, we are in a country where South Africa is a country that has for so long been hailed as having some of the best laws and policies to address inequality and gender-based violence. Yet we have been duped, the rape capital in the world, competing with countries that are in conflict like DRC, which then shows you that putting laws and policies in place alone is not adequate if they are not followed by the necessary action. So there's need for civil society to continue to be the watchdog of society and to hold decision makers accountable, to implement the laws and policies that have been put in place, to avail the resources that will ensure that these laws and policies become a reality. And when we now come to the second part of your question, which is how do we engage young boys and to change? I think, like I said, that's one of the opportunities is in the family setup. It starts from there when the work is done from the family environment, where then they are able to challenge those societal perceptions when they see that in the home we do things differently. We promote equality, we promote equity. And when they see that being done in the home, it's easier for them to also then be able to accept that, or to also learn new ways of doing things. But they're also creating opportunities to engage with them in the school setup, creating and engaging schools and engaging institutions of learning for young people, and ensuring that this part becomes part of their education, it becomes part of the curricula. Gender equality issues should not be, like I say, issues that are discussed on the peripheries. This should be part of the curriculum, because this is a major challenge that is faced across the globe. So young people, young boys, young girls should be able to learn about it, should be able to learn about positive norms, about gender equality, even within the school space, within the school environment. We should also be able to target them where they are, sports and spaces where young people are found, and also make sure that you come up with edutainment activities that are also still going to be able to educate them and inform them about issues around gender equality and the importance of advancing gender equality and gender justice.
How does gender equality contribute to sustainable tomorrow, and how does the world become better and sustainable from gender equality?
I think gender equality benefits all of us, as I have been saying in this interview, because it creates a space where women and men are able to contribute equitably and equally to our livelihoods. For instance, women it has been shown that, as I've alluded to earlier, that research has shown that where women are involved in decision-making spaces, where women are involved in peace negotiations, those tend to be more lasting, which is to the benefit of everyone. When we are talking gender justice within the context of climate change, women understand what needs to be done for us to be able to adapt to the changing environmental conditions that we're expressing. Like I said, women interface more with environmental resources. They work on the land, they get the water, they do. So they have the experience and the expertise. And gender equality enables us to be able to tap into their expertise, into their experiences, and into their knowledge, which will contribute to the betterment and wellness of everyone. And also, when we're speaking gender equality, like I said, it also enables men to be liberated, because when we're talking gender equality, we're saying everyone is able to equally participate and to be able to contribute. So you find that even where men are supposed to be, you are told you're supposed to be strong, you're supposed to be the provider, you're supposed to be all this. But if we have a more gender equal society, it means that it also takes away that burden from it being carried by men alone and being something that is assumed or that is associated with manhood, so that even in instances where a man is not in a position to do that, if it's in an equal space, then they are also able to benefit from the contributions of their counterparts. So development of society, of communities, because we are all able to benefit from the contributory abilities and skills of the different genders and women, when they are also able to contribute to the economic development, because gender inequality has got a cost. It costs countries when a lot. When a country is highly unequal, you find that there are a lot of resources that are spent on when you're trying to address the effects of gender-based violence, when you're trying to address the effects of the harm and the health implications that come with gender inequality. All those are issues that cost. But when you are then able to create a more equal society, that means that less resources are spent in creating services to address or mitigate the effects of some of the violations that come as a result of gender inequality. And that contributes to the sustainability of our societies. And it also is sustainable because it enables women and girls to be able to realize their full potential, to be able, their potential and their ability is not diminished, it's not compromised, but then they're able to also self-actualize, they're able to realize their potential, they're able to contribute meaningfully to the economies of their societies where they are coming from, which is what we are talking about when we're talking about sustainability. We're talking about everyone being able to live a decent livelihood. If we bring it to the context of the Sustainable Development Goals, where we're saying we leave no one behind. When we have gender equality, when we have gender equal societies, it means no one is left behind. And that means that we have more sustainability in terms of the quality of life that everyone is able to live.
Absolutely. I just wanted to say that, I find it strange that society expects women to raise children from start to finish, but they don't want them to be leaders in society. That for me is very odd and very sad, because ultimately those people are going on to live their own lives and been nurtured by their mom, and there we're excluding women from society. It's just that for me doesn't make sense.
Isn't that ironic, like what you are saying, that on one hand, the nurturing role has been reduced to being a woman's responsibility. But while you say a woman is capable of nurturing and raising a whole human being into being, you are saying in the same vein, this woman is not capable of taking a leading role or of occupying decision-making spaces, which I think also goes back to that issue that we're talking about, that is how these patriarchal norms that seek to limit women's participation, that seek to limit women's ability, it also limits and defines and reduces the nurturing role into being a woman's responsibility, when it shouldn't be a woman's responsibility only. In fact, research shows that children who have both parents being present and nurturing them are bound to grow up into being more have a healthy self-esteem about themselves, and they're also bound to be more human beings who are able to also treat other human beings with more respect and with more and in a more equal way. So it actually, research shows that it is a good thing. It is a necessary thing that every child is nurtured by both parents, by both caregivers, yet you find that society has then sought to diminish and reduce it into being a woman's responsibility, which also then cumulative will spiral, because it also then has a ripple effect. It means that when women are spending more time in nurturing roles and responsibilities, then they are not able to avail themselves to be able to do other things, to be able to also advance in terms of their careers, in terms of their jobs, in terms of their education, and that then also limits their ability to meaningfully participate and engage. So those are all things that really need to be addressed.
And Piwa, what is your message for International Women's Day?
For this, of course, first of all, I would like to say Happy International Women's Day to all the women across the world. Women, we have been doing the best that we can as women to ensure that we advance the discourse of gender equality. I think women have played a fundamental role in that sphere, and we continue to do so. And I think my message is that it's about time that it's time for action. There has been enough talk about the need for gender equality. It's time for action. It's time that we get to a point where gender parity is attained, gender parity is realized. We close this gap, and it's about time that decision makers put money where their words are. It's about time that corporations and public institutions avail resources and make sure that we take the necessary action to attain gender equality and ensure that no one is left behind.
I love that. And Piwa Mangwiro, say the full name?
Mpiwa Mangwiro Tsanga.
There we go. Sharp. From Sonke Gender Justice, thank you for your time and insightful words and messages and the conversation. I learned a lot, and I hope others did as well. And women equality is very important, and getting them involved in climate change and in society and having an equal society is it must happen. We can't keep talking about it, as you say. We have to have some action. So fully agree with you on what you've been saying, Piwa, and thank you for your time, and all the best with the work that you are doing there at Sonke Gender Justice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephen. It has been a pleasure having this conversation with you.
So being as we had such a great conversation with Piwa about climate change and women and the role of women, being this International Women's Day, International Women's Month, we're going to pick it up next month again. And of course, this is part one. There'll be a part two next time. And of course, we urge you to join us in that conversation as we continue the conversation around the importance of women in society, women in climate change, and women just in general and their role in society today. So join us again for another episode of Sonke Gender Justice and the role of women and climate change. We'll see you then. For myself, Stephen Taylor, take care. God bless.